Hello. This film documents the voyage of Lt Lord Crabtree and his wife Elena to attend the 10th anniversary of the D-Day ceremonies in France in 1954. During the Second World War, Lt Lord Crabtree served with the 7th Canadian Reconnaissance Regiment, 17th Duke of York's Royal Canadian Hussars, which operated as part of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division. The couple joined an organized tour of significant sites in France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, then broke off to make several other visits of their own. The film starts by showing the happy couple leaving Quebec City on a Cunard ocean liner. Here we see the happy couple on the deck of the ocean liner. Lorne is seen wearing his black Royal Canadian Armoured Corps beret, adorned with the hat badge of the 17th Duke of York's Royal Canadian Hussars. While we watch their sea voyage, let us talk a little bit about Lt Lord Crabtree. He served with the regiment in several distinct roles. In his first role, he was one of the officers assigned to be part of the D-Day beach groups. The beach groups were supposed to land with the assaulting troops and direct each successive wave of units off the beaches into their forming up points for their advance inland. While other members of the beach parties landed and provided this desired direction, Lt Lord Crabtree went missing after his landing craft hit an obstacle and exploded. When Crabtree regained consciousness, he was on a ship, naked and on his way back to England. Lacking clothes, he had no identification, and there was some suspicion that he might be a spy. Back on land, he acquired a new uniform and a complete kit, but the British colonel in charge of sending reinforcements to France refused Crabtree's plea to return him to Normandy. "Sorry, as far as I'm concerned, you do not exist. There is no paperwork on you, so go away." Crabtree reappeared before the officer daily, and eventually the exasperated colonel told him to go see a Canadian major stationed nearby. The Canadian major found that they had many mutual friends, leading him to accept Lorne's story. So when Crabtree saw a draft of men preparing to leave for France, he asked the major what would happen if he left with them. The major replied, "You don't exist." So Crabtree packed his kit and joined the draft, and the next day he was in France. And soon after that, he was back with his regiment. After crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the couple arrived at Southampton, where they stayed at the Polycon Hotel and toured the city. They then traveled by bus to visit Winchester. From Southampton, the couple traveled via Le Havre to Cannes, where they stayed at the Malherbe Hotel. The next day, they attended the official opening of the Arromanches Memorial Museum, which is a French museum dedicated to telling the story of the D-Day landing. That museum is built on the site of the artificial Mulberry Harbour in Courcelles-sur-Mer, approximately 13 kilometers west of the Canadian Juno Beach Centre, which was established in 2003. Early in the morning of June 6th, the couple attended a memorial service at Juno Beach in Bernières-sur-Mer, conducted by Padre Ray McCleary. They then spent the rest of the morning wandering around the whole area. In this scene on Juno Beach at Courcelles-sur-Mer, we see Lt Crabtree standing where he was supposed to have landed on D-Day. In this scene, we see three senior officers who served in the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division reviewing their maps and discussing the D-Day landing. From a ship offshore, Brigadier Todd oversaw the massive tri-service fire plane supporting the assault, while Lieutenant Colonels Meldrum and Matheson commanded the Royal Winnipeg Rifles and the Regina Rifles Regiment, respectively, during the landing. Next, we see the destroyed and abandoned strongpoints used by the Germans to unsuccessfully defend Juno Beach. Here, we see the Normandy countryside as a vehicle travels south from Juno Beach to the city of Cannes, where the couple had lunch. During the move, we see signs for the towns of Banville, Théon, Bretteville, Rots, Rossel, and Carpiquet, which in 1954 was a French military airport. This area saw heavy fighting during the months of June, July, and August 1944. As you can see, There are still many damaged buildings and restoration projects. Possibly in Caen, General Montgomery is seen in full uniform greeting the veterans and their spouses. After lunch, the couple travel back north through Authy, Buron, and Villon-les-Buissons to Benny-sur-Mer, where they attended a memorial service in the Canadian cemetery, where many Hussar casualties were buried. The next day, the visiting parties were transported by bus along the route followed by the Canadians during the breakout and the subsequent pursuit through France. One of the key spots visited was the town of Falaise, where many Germans were surrounded and killed. The couple stopped briefly to film a wedding, noting that a degree of normalcy had entered the area. From there, the buses moved northward to Abbeville and then on to Cap Gris-Nez, the large fortress from which the Germans bombarded ships in the English Channel. In Calais, the group was able to meet General Keller, the former commander of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division. After the breakout from Falaise, the 7th Recce Regiment's vehicles moved out ahead of the infantry and pursued the withdrawing German forces northeast along the coast. They eventually encircled large enemy positions at Boulogne, Cap Gris-Nez, and Calais, and prevented the enemy from retreating while the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division moved forward to assault those positions. From Calais, the touring veterans passed through Bruges in Belgium, a beautiful ancient city where the 12th Canadian Military Hospital was eventually established. On the 8th of June, the touring veterans arrived in Ghent, Belgium. In 1944, after the Battle of the Scheldt, the residents of this city, as a token of their thanks for their liberation, opened their homes and billeted the members of the regiment, allowing all the soldiers to clean and rest. On the evening of the 8th, the couple attended a very impressive ceremony during which the city's burgomaster returned the 3rd Division's colors to the veterans and then reaccepted them for further safekeeping. Later, there was a civic reception in the very ancient town hall. The same day, the couple visited the Adegem Cemetery, where most of the Canadian casualties from the Battle of the Scheldt are buried. On the 9th of June, the couple went on a bus tour of the Scheldt area. Here they saw many places where the 7th Recce had been deployed during the battle. This included A squadrons positioned on the Leopold Canal, as well as the place near Biervlet, where the unit landed and took over positions from the Hamilton Light Infantry after crossing the Brakeman Inlet in amphibious vehicles. This excursion also brought Crabtree close to the location where his bravery was recognized during the war. On the 27th of October 1944, Lieutenant Crabtree's troop was held up just north of Ardenburg by heavy 20mm shell fire and machine gun fire, which was coming from an enemy position on a dike to their front. At last light, Crabtree led a patrol to the dike under heavy fire. He captured the objective and held it against 2 counterattacks. For his courage and initiative, he was awarded the Military Cross. On the evening of the 9th, the group moved to Antwerp, where the organized part of the tour ended. The couple then hired a car and did some touring on their own. First, they visited the bridge at Arnhem, which was made famous in the book and film entitled A Bridge Too Far. The couple also visited some of the locations where the 7th Reconnaissance Regiment was stationed along the Wall River in the late fall of 1944 and the winter of 1945. First, the unit spent time in Nijmegen guarding a large bridge captured by American paratroopers in Operation Market Garden. Then the unit guarded the division's flank by occupying a line of observation posts along the high water dike southwest of the Wall River, living in houses just behind the dike. When the Germans breached a dike in late November, flooding large areas downstream, A Squadron was forced to scramble to safety and abandon their positions in front of the dike. However, it became apparent that a brick factory was on higher ground, so it remained dry.
Hark, I hear the foe advancing, parted steeds are proudly prancing, helmets in the sunbeam glancing glittered through the trees. Men of Harlech, lie ye dreaming, see ye not their falchions gleaming, while their pennons gaily streaming flutter in the breeze. From the rocks rebounding, let the war cry sounding, summon all at Cambridge call, the haughty foe surrounding. Men of Harlech, on to glory, see your banner famed in story, wave these burning words before ye, death before ye.
When unit observers saw lights at the factory and heard various sounds coming from it, a patrol from No. 3 Troop was ordered to investigate it with a view to occupying the building. The troop leader chose one of his men to go with him, but an officer from squadron headquarters who had been a long-time troop leader asked to be included in the patrol. The 2 lieutenants, probably Crabtree and Doig, set out quietly in a 2-man rubber dinghy. However, the element of surprise was lost when a mouse got into the trousers of one of the 2 officers. He stood up and started shouting and dancing around. Fortunately, the factory was deserted and A Squadron was able to occupy it. The reference to the Battle of the Mouse is surely a reference to this incident. That is the end of the film. Thanks very much to Lieutenant Crabtree for sharing these pictures, and thanks to you for watching.
From the rocks rebounding, let the war cry sounding, summon all at Cambridge call, the haughty foe surrounding.